Okay, sounds good. In 5, 4, 3. Welcome to Politics Now. We talk to candidates for office, and we're talking today with Las Vegas City Councilman Stavros Anthony, who is shortly going to be, or is actually now, a candidate for Clark County Commission, District C.
Correct.
All right, sounds good. Well, welcome back to the program. We appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Let's talk about, well, first of all, let me ask how your health is, because I know in 2016 you were thinking of running for Congress, but you had a rapid heartbeat. Is that all right? Everything's okay?
Yeah, actually, that was a little bit of a scare.
Yeah.
My heart rate got up pretty high. Went to the hospital for a couple of days, but ever since then, I see my doctor every 6 months, and things are awesome. I go to the gym 5-6 days a week and work out. So, you know, sometimes it takes a little scare like that to make you realize you have to take care of your health first.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you're running for office, and that time I was running for Congress, things get a little hectic. You start not eating well. You start exercising less. I'm focused on that 100%.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and if you walk your district, you're going to get plenty of exercise. I would imagine, knocking on all those doors and going through all the neighborhoods.
Yes, but I appreciate you asking me that, and I'm in great shape. Thank you very much.
Good, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So you're term limited on the city council. You ran for mayor back in 2015. Had a respectable turnout there. So why the county commission now? Is it because the seat's coming open with Larry Brown being term limited as well?
You know, that's part of it. It is an open seat. Those are usually a little easier to win because there isn't an incumbent there. And as you know, when you're an incumbent in a seat, it's pretty tough to beat somebody. But you know, Steve, I came here in 1980 to join the police department, and I've been with them for 29 years, retired as a captain, and my whole 40 years in Southern Nevada has been public service, whether it's with Metro, whether it was 7 years on the Board of Regents, teaching part-time at the College of Southern Nevada, or the last 10 years on the City Council. So this is really my next step. It's obviously a bigger position. The district is bigger than my ward. Ward 4, it actually takes up over 3 wards in the city of Las Vegas. Instead of 100,000 people, there's 300,000, over 300,000 in the district. So this is a great opportunity for me to continue my public service and serve Southern Nevada as a Clark County Commissioner.
Yeah, you got a little bit of a head start too, because 100,000 of those people that are going to be voting, you know, already have voted for you several times on the city council. Yeah,
the last 2 times I ran for Ward 4, I received 78% of the vote. Yeah. So I think I'm doing a pretty good job, and it's really, you know, the biggest responsibility I have is to be out in the community listening to folks, and that's what I do. And people have my cell phone. They call me up. People that live in Sun City call me personally and say, hey, we're having a problem in our neighborhood. Can you help us out? And I've been doing that since I was a cop. You know, that's what community policing was all about, is being out in the community. So I know how to do that, and I do have a head start. There's people, and Ward 2 and Ward 6 are actually in District C, and I've spoken to a lot of those folks too. So I have a head start when it comes to people that trust me in that position. Yeah, and now if you get elected, you kind of will break the mold over there, because it's all Democrats on the commission. You're a Republican. Do you think that'll play into the race at any point? The city council positions are generally considered nonpartisan. The work on the county commission really isn't a partisan job as much as it would be, say, in Congress or the legislature. Right. You're right. It's really not a partisan position, but it is a Republican versus a Democrat. So when I ran for the city council, I was the first Republican elected in about 20 years, and now we have 3. Wow, so you started a trend. I did. So I plan on doing the same thing on the county commission. But you know, it's really you really need a balance on these boards. You need some Democrats, some Republicans, independents, because you get different ideas that way. I'm more conservative in my thoughts, so I think it brings a balance and a good, healthy debate to have different viewpoints, whether it's Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal. I think that's healthy for our community. So let's talk about what you want to do on there. Obviously, you've been working as a city councilman. You're familiar with the problems that are in some of the neighborhoods. What do you think your top priority would be? What's the biggest need in District C that you would address if you got elected? Well, the most important priority for me, whether it's on the city council or whether it's on the county commission, is neighborhood integrity. Because really the most important thing that people have is their neighborhood, where they live, where they raise their kids, where they walk their dogs, where they go to the park, where they work. And people want a safe, organized community that they live in. They don't want graffiti, they don't want shopping carts, they don't want junk cars parked in front of their house. They want to be able to go to the park and it's safe, they can take their kids there. And it's not even safe, it's a perception of being safe. And that's really what I do the most, is make sure that our neighborhoods are in great shape and people are proud of where they live. So in District C, we have a lot of desert rural area, and people want to live in a desert rural community. Well, I want to preserve that. I want to make sure that people want to live a lifestyle that they bought their house into, that they bought their land where they work, and that's really number one. Second is really transportation. Everybody's got to drive somewhere.
Yeah.
A lot of people take public transportation, but most of us drive places, and we drive alone. And I want to make sure that we have great roads and the stoplights are working and they're synchronized and we don't have potholes. I mean, it's really, that's what local government does, is repair potholes. That's such a big deal, because people are not paying attention to Washington, D.C. when they drive their car over a pothole and it messes up their tire. Yeah. That's what they're concerned about. So those are the priorities that I believe are important, because that's what is important to the people that live in, whether it's the city of Las Vegas or unincorporated Clark County. Well,
and we'll definitely talk about transportation in a second. You're singing my tune there on that one. A kind of an insider question. There are in the city county islands. Those are areas of land that are unincorporated county, but they're surrounded by the city. There's been fights over annexation. Would they annex into the city? The property tax levels are different. Some people don't want to annex into the city. Will your position on that change when you go from city to county, assuming you get elected?
My position on the City Council and my position on the Clark County Commission is, if you do not want to get annexed into the city, you are not going to get annexed into the city. If you want to get annexed into the city and you request that, then we're going to accommodate you, because some people do want to get annexed into the city for sewer reasons, but I will not force anyone to that lives in Clark County to be forcibly annexed into the city of Las Vegas. I will fight that completely.
Yeah. We have reported here at Channel 8, Vanessa Murphy has reported on child deaths, deaths of children that are within the county under the jurisdiction of CPS. They'll have reports that get called in. Nothing happens. Children end up dying. And it's difficult for even the commissioners who oversee the county to deal with it, because the reports, the information is all confidential, even from the county commission, amazing as that might seem. What do you think ought to be done about that, especially given the limitations that you can't even get into the files to find out what happened?
Right. That's a great topic, because we're talking about the safety of kids that are neglected, that are abused, that are taken from their parents. I need to get my arms around that. I need to dig deeper into family services and find out what I can do as a county commissioner to make sure these kids are protected. So that will be one of my top things to look at when I'm elected.
Do you think the law ought to be changed, because the people elect county commissioners, and they elect them to run the government. But right now, essentially, they're being told, listen, you have to trust the staff. And, you get good staff, you get bad staff, who knows? But you don't know, because you can't get into that information. Right. Does the law need to change to allow the commissioners to be able to get more information about those cases?
Yes, because it's my responsibility to establish public policy with the entire county commission. And if I don't have the information to make those policy decisions, what am I going to do? My hands are tied. Yeah. And we have great employees at the city, we have great employees at the county, but if the county commissioners don't have the information, then what are they going to do? They can just say we can't do anything about it. I'm not going to stand for that. So I want to make sure that I have all the information that I need to make those policy decisions, to recommend ordinances and recommend legislation to make sure these kids are protected to the fullest extent.
Okay. Now, you're, as you mentioned, you were a longtime Metro Police officer, retired as a captain. You've been a skeptic of this whole idea of legalizing recreational marijuana. The legislature has prohibited marijuana lounges from being built. There was a push to do that, even though the initiative that legalized recreational marijuana didn't allow for it. There was no state law on point that allowed for it. Some jurisdictions wanted to do it, wanted to push forward. You've been a skeptic of that. If the legislature allows that, should the county consider marijuana lounges, or should that be something that they should not consider?
Well, if the state legislature authorizes lounges, then we have to take a look at it. But there's no rush. I mean, I think the reason why the marijuana industry has been fairly successful is because we've taken our time. We have not rushed to do things. Whereas you go to Denver, and they were going 100 miles an hour when it came to legalized marijuana. We need to take our time, debate it, discuss it. If they authorize consumption lounges, just like we have medical or marijuana dispensaries, the big question is, where are you going to put them? And that's the most important thing, is where are they going to be located? Dispensaries, sometimes they're good for a location, sometimes they're not. Consumption lounges, we're going to have to discuss where they're going to be located, but more importantly for me is when people leave a consumption lounge, what are they doing when they're leaving? Are they getting into Ubers and Lyfts and taking public transportation, or they're getting into a car and driving when we know they're impaired?
Yeah.
So if they're authorized, then we need to have a discussion about how those things are going to shake out, and the Clark County Commission is going to have to do that. And I think if we take our time, we'll do the right thing.
And that is one of the big issues, is the DUI,
Right.
because the standard for impairment now under Nevada law is very low. The amounts are very low. And with the advent of legalization, I think a lot of people may have had the wrong impression. I've seen people in cars smoking while they drive,
Right.
and not realizing you are definitely breaking the law, and if a police officer sees you doing that, you're going to get pulled over, you're going to get cited,
Right.
for sure. So speaking of driving, let's talk about traffic. One of your big issues recently has been this issue of the carpool or HOV, high occupancy vehicle lanes. With the completion of Project Neon, or the semi-completion we'll call it, because I guess they're still working out there, they have begun enforcing HOV lanes 24/7. You have said, look, before we had this Project Neon was complete, you could use those lanes if you were a single driver off hours. And why shouldn't we allow that to continue? And that's been, you've gotten some pushback. That's become very controversial, and the state has not given any ground on that.
No, they haven't, and you know, I'm just like anybody else that drives 95 and I-15. When your traffic is backed up and you look over at the HOV lane, and it's not very well populated. Most of the people there are, you know, landscape trucks with 2 or 3 people in it, moving trucks with 2 or 3 people in it, somebody taking their kid to school, but I guarantee you nobody is out there calling up their friends saying, hey, let's go to work together today so we can use the HOV lane. So people are breaking the law. They're driving in the HOV lane as a single driver. You can see it, I can see it. It's very prevalent. So I think they're useless in the first place, but it really, the tipping point was, as you mentioned, is when they went 24/7. Yeah. There's no reason to have those designated HOV lanes at 12 noon or 2 in the morning. It just kind of stuck it to everybody. And when I brought it up and decided to ask the city council for a resolution to ask the Nevada Transportation Board to just go back to the way it was, restricted times, yeah. They didn't even hear it, discuss it, and it was a 7-0 for the city council to ask them to do that. And we represent, you know, 600,000 people, yeah. And I'll tell you, 90% of the public was with us on this. They wanted it to go back to certain restricted times, and they didn't hear it, and there's not much else I can do at this point.
As somebody who drives in on I-15 to downtown every day, and the freeway stacks up at the exact same place, the exact same time every day, I got to be honest with you, I have looked over that HOV lane, seen it totally empty, and have been tempted to break the law myself. I have not done that, just for the record, I have not done that. So Governor Steve Sisolak was asked about this issue, and he said something interesting. He said that part of the reason for the 24/7 was that our federal funding was contingent upon having 24/7 HOV lanes. And he said, so you just can't take them away without risking losing that federal funding, and we don't want to do that. Now, when the Project Neon was first contemplated and the HOV lanes were being built and that big flyover, that $1 million flyover was being constructed, I actually asked the NDOT about that. And I said, are you doing these carpool lanes because of federal funding? Is it a requirement, or are you accessing additional funds for doing that? They told me at the time, no, we were not doing that. So what's the truth about that? Is this a federal requirement, or is this something the state has opted into?
Well, I don't know. If you go to Phoenix, if you go to Northern California, a lot of their HOV lanes are not 24/7, and I'm assuming those are federally funded also. So I have not actually got into that particular question. That's what I've been told. But I haven't actually researched it myself to find that out. That's a good question we may have to look at, because maybe the governor is not being given the correct information, and we need to get that out to find out if that is the case or not.
Yeah, that's definitely something to follow up on, just because at least from what I was told at the beginning of Project Neon, that was not the case. So in terms of overall traffic, you mentioned traffic flow as being an important quality of life, light synchronization, all those kind of things. The RTC's general manager, Tina Quigley, is stepping down. A new person is going to be appointed. If you get on the county commission, you may be one of the people that sits on the RTC as a representative of the county. What ought to be done there to improve things?
Well, actually, I was just appointed by the mayor to RTC.
So you're on the RTC. You're going to be on the RTC.
Just a month ago. I've only had one meeting, so most people don't even know that yet.
So you haven't fixed it yet. I mean, come on. I was just driving to work today.
You know, it's there has to be a balance between a good, solid bus service for people that need public transportation. We have to have that in place. But as I said before, most people in this valley want to drive their car. They want to drive their car. Most of them are going to drive themselves. So we have to have a system in place where it comes down to, when I was a traffic captain, it was enforcement, education, and engineering. So we have to make sure our roads are engineered correctly. We have to make sure that people are educated about the driving rules, and there has to be enforcement. So if people are running red lights, they have to get a ticket. Somebody's going to get killed. We don't need to give people in the HOV lane tickets, because that's not a public safety issue. So we need to put the cops where they belong to reduce traffic accidents. So as a member of the RTC and the county commission or the city council, it's my responsibility to number one is talk to the folks that are out there driving around and listen to them and saying, hey, this particular location should have a right turn lane only. And we need to take a look at that and carve that out and spend the money to do that. And we have the money because of the gas tax that was passed. So it's absolutely imperative that we engineer our roadways so people are driving safely, and we educate, and then we enforce when we have to.
Yeah, and it certainly is a big job, because you have people from all over. They're different driving styles, used to different rules. They get frustrated. You know, you talk about red light running. People get frustrated. They're sitting at the light. It turns green. They go a little way, and you know that they finally get up there and it turns yellow. They're probably going to punch it and try to get through. But as you said, you were captain of the traffic bureau, so I'm sure you've seen a lot of crazy things done on the roads as well. So.
I have, and unfortunately, people get hurt. So that's what we need to make sure we try to stop.
Sounds good. All right. Well, Stavros Anthony, thanks very much for sitting down with us on Politics Now for your campaign for Clark County Commission District C. Good luck to you, and we hope you come back.
Thank you. And my website is stavrosanthony.com, stavrosanthony for districtc.com, and my cell phone, if you want it, is 702-812-0123. And appreciate everyone's support, and thank you for having me on today.
Sounds great.